Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Let's shift gears slightly and bring you this conversation now. TikTok's presence in the US certainly facing a precarious future, with the app briefly affected, ahead of a looming federal ban. With tensions rising and uncertainty surrounding its future, the stakes, of course, for many content creators couldn't be higher. Let's take stock of the ripple effects, possibly not only for content creators in the US, but certainly closer to home as well. Bring in now South African influencer and founder of My Media Kit, that's Brenden Roberts, who's with us here in our Auckland Park studios. Brenden, thanks for popping by. Welcome to the SABC.
Ayanda, thank you so much for having me here.
You and I were speaking off air about the stakes, quite frankly, insofar as lives and livelihoods are concerned, specifically on TikTok. But I just want to begin by helping our viewer connect the dots. There's a major ban, potentially, that could be rolled out in the US.
Yeah.
Why should even South African consumers and creators keep a close eye on that?
So I think to start, just to lay a foundation, what people always need to understand is that social media in its essence is a game of who has the most time. So there are only so many people on the planet. Each person represents an average number of viewable minutes or hours per day that they spend on a phone or behind a computer. So you've got all of these social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. They're all fighting for that time because ultimately that time equals viewership, which equals ads, which equals revenue for them. And the biggest thing is, they're trying to keep as many people on board. So obviously they try to incentivize people to keep people on the platform. So whether you're just watching or whether you're creating, and obviously that affects a lot of people because people do make a livelihood out of it. So if you now all of a sudden have 160 million people disappearing off of an app, the big question is, what happens to the time that is now left over with the people that are still on the app, and how do those people get compensated for taking part in that app still? So
it really is an ecosystem.
It is an ecosystem,
ways, right?
It is a massive ecosystem, and a very unequal ecosystem as well.
There you got it. What do you mean by that?
So if we take what's happened now, the US, along with Germany, Spain, Italy, France, South Korea, Japan, and Brazil, and the UK, are the only countries in the world that have access to what we call the TikTok Creator Fund. So the Creator Fund is essentially a concept that was sort of championed by YouTube back in the day. So in order to keep people on a platform, in order to generate viewable hours, you obviously have to have people creating content. The way that you keep people creating content is to incentivize them to continue creating content. So you pay them. So YouTube pays you per, X amount of views that you have on the platform, and creators are obviously able to upgrade their kits. They, can keep creating more. And that's what draws people onto the platform. So obviously now you have this huge ecosystem, and the United States, they're getting paid for views, but the entire African continent is not. Neither is Australia, neither is New Zealand, and a few other countries. So we're all saying, okay, but what about us now? We creating content. There's 160 million people in the United States. There's an equal number of people creating content on the African continent. We also have 160 million people on the African continent. South Africa's number 3 with 17 million users. So how do we now get compensated when, for example, someone starts the Tswala Bami dance challenge here in South Africa, generates huge amounts of viewership? Someone in the United States picks that video up, an air hostess or a bartender or someone who's just doing TikTok for fun. They qualified for the TikTok Creator Fund. They go and do the video. They get 2, 3, 4 million views, and they get paid for it. But the person in Africa or South Africa that started the trend don't get compensated at all.
Is this a call to the government? I mean, where's this money coming from?
So this is coming directly from TikTok itself. So it is essentially TikTok takes revenue from within internally, and they distribute it through a creator fund that then incentivizes creators to continue creating content because they're getting paid to create content.
Goodness. So how do TikTokers in South Africa make their money? Through the endorsement deals?
So that is essentially the only avenues that we have. We have endorsement deals. So we have a couple about 500,000 influencers or creators in South Africa that are constantly fighting for a piece of the pie to try and, get endorsements or brand deals or whatever the case might be with various companies and entities. You then also have TikTok Live, but there you can only really make money through people giving you gifts, which TikTok then still takes a cut of. And then that's about it. You can participate in dance and music challenges, but let's say, for example, myself, I've got no interest in taking part in anything like that. It's not my kind of content. It's not what my audience wants to see. So unless I'm going live or I'm getting endorsements or brand deals from external companies, I made 36 million views from April last year until now. I've not been paid a single cent for any of those views through TikTok.
Sure. It sounds like a passion kind of, I don't want to say a passion project, but you really are in this because you love it more than anything else.
I do.
But at some stage you got to eat, as they say in the streets, So for people perhaps like myself who feel relatively kind of outside of this ecosystem, take us into your confidence around what it takes to constantly create the content. Because it's one thing to get it at a particular quality, but it's another to keep it going in order to retain some of these viewers.
You'll be very surprised. A lot of people ask me, how did I get into it? I always say, everyone's got an opinion. Everyone experiences things on a day-to-day basis. We've got can only happen in South Africa or only in South Africa sort of thing. There's so many things that happen in South Africa that are, you take a video of it, you put it online, and the next thing you know, you've got 2-3 million views, you've gained a little bit of an audience, and let's say, for example, you come across something and, this is an opinion or a feeling that you want to share with people. I always say to people, go sit in your car or go sit at your coffee table. A lot of people recognize the backdrop of my house just because it's where I sit and I do a lot of my videos. I say, just share your opinion. Turn your front camera, face it towards yourself, say something, put it out there. 17 million people in South Africa could potentially see it. You will find people that are going to resonate with that. They're going to like it. They're going to like you for you. Maybe you're quirky. Maybe you're shy. Maybe you say the wrong thing sometimes. But there's always going to be people that are going to gravitate towards you. And once that ball starts rolling, it's actually surprisingly very easy because you start sort of thinking of your life as like these little mini episodes. So as you're going throughout the day, you kind of start seeing, like, ooh, I can make a video about that. Ooh, I can make a video about that. Like yesterday, I put a video out sort of like challenging TikTok and their CEO, saying like, the rest of the world's not just going to sit back now. We actually want an answer. If he could go to the US to go and defend their right to have the app, surely he can go online and he can say to the rest of the world why we do or don't deserve access to equal opportunities on the app. That video now is sitting on almost 100,000 views. It's got a couple thousand comments, everyone just saying like, yes, I feel the same, yes, I feel the same, yes. So it's more about just relating to people. And it's just the right thing at the right time. It could be an experience, December.
Right. Fascinating, especially because I think even as recently as a decade ago, it'd be hard to kind of conceive how people could drop everything and focus on this as their livelihood. And the sense I'm getting from you is that that is very much a reality in the US as much as it is here at home. Where people ditch, let's call it the conventional jobs, like being a news anchor or whatever the case may be, to being on TikTok full time and getting on with it.
Yes. I have a lot of people that are basically full-time content creators that I know. That was why we started the My Media Kit. Was essentially to help content creators and influencers land brand deals, because that's the only avenue that we have in South Africa. And that's why it would be nice to just have that, access to that extra equal rights sort of thing, get our content pushed out to the rest of the world so that there are other avenues that you can also make money in.
Yeah, and I understand that initiative has stretched even beyond the country.
It has.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about that.
So, if you look at the African continent, you've got Egypt with 32 million users, Nigeria is sitting on 27 million users, South Africa 17. So when I posted that video, I've got people from all over Africa saying, we're behind you on this one. It's not just South Africa, because South Africa is one of the only, Africa is one of the only continents that don't get compensated at all. So everybody wants a piece of this. And we are an extremely diverse and rich continent. We have so much to offer in terms of culture, dance, music, food. The creators that we have in South Africa and on the African continent are very value driven.
Yeah.
Like the value that they bring to their audience is insane.
Right. You know, what's going on in the US, and I'm not going to pull you into all of that, is essentially allegations that China is using TikTok to spy on Americans.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you how possible something like that is. And, you know, again, I appreciate you're not really involved in the algorithms. Perhaps you don't even know what's going on insofar as the tech is concerned.
Yeah.
But just your general take as somebody who spends a lot of time on TikTok, does that sound like something that is possible, probable?
In today's day and age, nothing is impossible.
Fair enough.
Whether it's known or unknown. But I think the thing that is sort of like giving the US a little bit of a worry is the fact that they know that it is possible because of what happened with Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, everything that happened back then. So I think they know that it is possible for governments to gain access. TikTok has bolstered themselves saying often, and the CEOs come forward often saying that no government entity has access to anything. It is a completely separate parent entity, so that's ByteDance. So TikTok is owned by a parent company called ByteDance,
Right.
and that's obviously the subsidiary that everyone is saying, okay, China could have. But then everyone's saying, okay, but what about Temu? Temu collects just as much data, Shein collects just as much data, and all the US citizens, when the ban happened for all of 12 hours, which, what was that even? They all went over to an app called Red Note, which is a Chinese-based, that is as Chinese as it can get. And everyone was just like, here's our data. Take
Sure.
it,
Yeah.
have it.
Difficult to see how you could regulate something like that. You and I could speak until, you know, the next ban, if there is another one. So, Brenden, thanks very much indeed for coming through. I find this personally fascinating. We're watching the world change literally in real time. And I think TikTok is a huge driver of that. Brenden Roberts is the founder of My Media Kit, also a South African influencer. As we make sense, of course, of the far-reaching impact of what's taking place in the US insofar as TikTok's presence is concerned.